Got to go back to bad parenting. I just think this is all because parents just treat their kids like little geniuses. Not all parents, but a certain type of parent. The kind that sends their kids to Ivy League colleges.
Your parents.
Spoiler alert, not my parents. Oh, not my parents were in World War II, baby.
And that was the last time we had strong men.
Well,
think about this. 1940s, World War II, men lied about their age
to get in,
to enlist.
Sure.
And now, in 2023, we have men lying about their sex to get into women's sports or women's prisons or domestic shelters or sororities or bathrooms, locker rooms. I mean, it's crazy if you think about it.
Everything's upside down.
But here's where there's hope, though, because it's incredibly interesting. You can see this play out throughout history, and it's strong men or hard men, or oh my gosh, hard men. I think I'm like those few.
It's a Freudian.
No, hard times create strong men.
It's a Freudian slip. We all do it.
Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And it really is interesting because you can see this play out.
What's going on, everyone? It's Talks with Kenny here today, and whoa, masculinity is back in the news again, right? We got Andrew Tate being let go of house arrest. We got all sorts of things going on, and I kind of wanted to speak on this because I just found this interview with Bill Maher with Riley Gaines as she blames the trans social contagion on left-wing shaming of masculinity, and I agree with her on her synopsis here, right? And I have a lot of ads on this thing, so instead I'll read it for you, but as you guys know, I'm reading off an article before I go into my thoughts about this. So Riley Gaines, as you saw in the intro, she blames the trans phenomenon on the societal push to redefine masculinity as toxic. And this is my biggest problem with the term toxic masculinity, is that it doesn't give any specifics, right? A feminist can use toxic masculinity, and a regular woman who likes masculine men, but she finds maybe a certain segment of it toxic, right? It's never on them to define their terms. All they have to do is, I'm just going to call you toxically masculine, when it means, AKA, you're doing something that I don't like, so therefore I'm going to shame you for it. Right. And I don't understand the societal push to weaken men. And as Riley Gaines mentioned before, and I heard of this saying all the time, right? The strong man create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. There you go. I agree. My father used to always tell me this. There's nothing more dangerous than an emotional man. Because why? Men, hey, we have a monopoly on violence. I can admit that. Yes, men has a monopoly on violence. If a woman gets mad and she loses her mind, she causes less damage than a man in the same circumstance. This is why we treat and react to men and women differently when it comes to domestic violence, right? I'm just being honest. When a woman gets physically violent, it's not as, she won't cause as much damage. She can cause damage. Don't get me wrong. Anybody can cause damage, but when a woman flies off their handle, it's not going to be as much damage as if a man flies off their handle. A man can kill you with just bare hands. It's a lot harder for a woman to do it, right? And this is the gender differences coming out. But then you have this article like from the Atlantic, and here's a clip from Bill Maher and Riley Gaines discussing that. Like, the things these left-wing people talk about, it sounds like something that as if a conservative like me was parodying their talking points. Here, take a look.
Pretending that male and female athletes are somehow peers. They're not. I mean, I may have talked about this on this podcast before, but it just obsesses me, because it's my refutation to the people who say, "Oh, Bill, when you go on about wokeness, it's just a little fringe. It's not a fringe. It's not just a few people," because this was in the Atlantic. That's one of like a very major publication, a very mainstream major publication, very respected. And they printed an article, and the title of the article was, "Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense." But it does. And there is like sentences in this article that you would swear this is just a parody in The Onion. Like, we don't know why, we don't know if men are stronger than women, but if they are, we'd have to find out if it's because of nature or because of socialization. Yeah, that's what it is. They're trying to put through this idea
right.
that these differences are not innate.
Right.
It's very similar to what's going on with, gender and sexuality. Like, well, you're born a boy or a girl. Maybe that's not right. Maybe it's how you socialize, and that's where the difference between gender and sex is. This big debate we're
Right.
having about that. But when it comes to athletics, it's just so plain that we're just different. It's not sexist to say that.
No, we should ask the Atlantic if we should if we should separate the Paralympics versus the Olympics, or if we should have
Right.
heavyweight boxers competing against featherweights. Are we fat shaming
Right.
Are we fat shaming the heavyweights?
Right.
No, we do this for a reason.
Yes.
Yes, and she's completely right about that. And even when Bill Maher was mentioning before about the whole parenting, and there's a certain kind of parent that teaches their kid that they're never wrong about anything, and it's this this fragile parenting style. I forgot who. There's a book called Anti-Fragile, and they talk about this idea of how baby boomers, Gen Xers, they baby their kids, and by bubble wrap parents, helicopter parents, you essentially condition your children to be fragile and unable to handle setbacks and obstacles that will arise in their life. And that's the kind of parenting I reject wholeheartedly. I want to prepare my kid for a world when I'm not in it. I think that's the greatest form of love. I think what we're doing now is we're creating a lot of dependent children, and then when these dependent children grow up, they just become dependent adults. You see it. There's a stats out there that there's a failure to launch that's going on with my generation, right? Because I speak about it all the time. I'm a 27-year-old man, right? And I'm already a homeowner. I already have my family. I have 2 kids. I'm married, right? If you check my experience with the average 27-year-old, most men that's my age are still living with their parents for the most part. And you see it like there's a lot of TikToks that talk about this, that 28 years old, my parents at 28 years old, similar situation that I'm in, me still living with my parents, still trying to figure out my life. You see it. And I think it's because of this culture of, hey, no, we don't want to put no pressure on you. We don't want to have no expectations on you. And I think we're just overcorrecting at this point, because I think children needs expectations. I have high expectations for my kids, but along with my high expectations for my children, I give them high support. You guys talk about, like, you see my education videos when I rail against the education system. I talk about why I want to homeschool my kids, because I believe I can give them the support they need that not no regular teacher whose attention is spread around 33 other kids can do for my kid. So I say, hey, I'm gonna take it into my own hands. I want my kids to understand that they have power over their own mind and not outside events. I want my kids to think about, hey, you don't have control of things outside of your own mind, right? You can't control what happens to you, son, but you can control how you respond. So how you choose to respond. When you respond, you want to respond in a way where you don't make the setback or the situation worse. Think about it in that way, right? And that's the mental model that I want to instill in my kids. And kids are very impressionable under the age of 7. So I know, hey, if I have my kids up to the age of 7, I did my job, right? Because I can condition them and I can give them this value, this mindset where they'll be able, more equipped to handle the hardships of life. Because end of the day, life is hard. And I think the way we parent our kids today, we give them this false expectation that life is supposed to be easy. Life is always supposed to be good things happening to you. And when bad things happen to you, it is not supposed to exist in reality. And this is why we get a lot of these millennials today that want socialism, because at the end of the day, they know when you grow up, once you hit a certain age, you can no longer depend on your parents. So these dependent adults want to depend on the government. And this is how we get this cycle of people wanting socialism, because people don't want responsibility for themselves, right? People don't want responsibility for themselves, but they still want autonomy for themselves. And this is why people are like socialism, right? They want to be able to do whatever they want, but they don't want to pay the consequences of their autonomy. Oh, if I do something, it's not my fault. Right? They don't understand trade-offs. It seems like a lot of people don't understand trade-offs. And it seems like feminists, when they were crusading against masculinity, they didn't want to take this into consideration. Here, and this is the same article, guys. Obviously, I'm blanking it out because there's so much ads and I don't feel like paying a subscription. So I'm gonna read it. So take my word for it. According to the post-millennial, in contemporary America, however, the concept of toxic masculinity has taken over. The idea is to blame masculinity essentially for all societal ills. And that's a misnomer, because if we look at femininity, and here's my definition of toxic femininity, toxic masculinity is very in your face. it's very like loud and proud, and you know when the person is doing wrong, right? This is the difference between men and women. Men are very direct with their communication, while women are very indirect with their communication. How can you know this, Kenny? I grew up with 3 female cousins. I have an older sister, and I've been married. Not married. I've been with my wife for about 8 years now. So I understand how women communicate and how I communicate, because obviously I live with a woman, right? And toxic femininity, women bully very passively. I think Jordan Peterson talked about this a lot, that women, how they bully is through societal, like they try to ignore you in society. Like they try to exclude you, right, and make you feel alone, socially isolated. That's how women tend to bully other women, right? They tend to character assassinate, right, which is what's going on with Andrew Tate. This is why I brought up Andrew Tate. Right? This is the top typical how females bullying. And social media, since everything is no longer physical, right? Female bullying is more rampant on social media. This is why you get a lot of these women on TikTok where a man stands up and says what he feels like is true, and females don't like it. What they do? They ban him, they block him, they get him kicked out of TikTok because it's a female space. And that's exactly how women will bully in the real world. When a woman says something they don't like, oh, okay, socially isolate her, ignore her, don't want to like create rumors around her so other women don't associate with her, so she feels socially isolated and alone. I mean, I'm not speaking Chinese here, but they don't see nothing wrong with that. Oh, that's a correct way of bullying. But if I bully my my younger brother, beat him up a little bit, rough him up, and say, hey, look, be better. Hey, you're a fat piece of POS. You need to get in the gym. They'll condemn that form of bullying. But if I socially ostracate my friends, don't talk to her, don't associate with her, which is everyone wants to talk about mental health. That's one way of creating a psychopath by social, because we're social creatures. Humans are social creatures. No one said that's psychological bullying. No one's saying that's social bullying, because that's accepted because women tend to do those type of bullying. You see the double standard here? Right? We can't condemn one style and then just because it's different from the other style. This is why I think society is heading for hard times, is because we're conditioning our youth, my generation and Gen Z, to be fragile, to ignore their problems. Oh, I have student loan debt. I don't even want to see the number. Well, how can you fix a problem that you're not aware of? You can only fix something that you're aware of. And if you ignore the problem, the only thing the problem is going to do is get bigger. Right. And I just don't like the way the trends that society is going right now. And she made the perfect point when she brought up the World War II, 1940s. Men were trying to lie to get into a world war, while men today, if you put them in the same circumstances, they'll be trying to lie to get out of it. Oh, I'm a woman. Look at me. Not, because they want an advantage now. And it's sad that where our society is going. And I agree with their synopsis here. I think it is a social contagion that's doing this. Because I always made this argument, whatever society puts up in front of you is what society wants. And that's the incentive structure that society is creating and mainstream media is creating, right? Dylan Mulvaney is more accepted. He gets brand deals. He gets sponsorships. But you think Andrew Tate gonna get sponsorship from Nike? So I think Andrew Tate, if Under Armour, Nike sponsored Andrew Tate, I think they'll get a lot more sales, a lot more bang for their buck. But instead, they rather give those sponsorship money to Dylan Mulvaney. What is that teaching society? What is that teaching to my kids and impressionable young men? Oh, if I act like a weak, dincy man, I'm gonna get money, fame. People will love me. Mainstream media will be behind me. The establishment will put me on the billboards, and I'll be able to afford fancy hotels and all that stuff. But if I become Andrew Tate, I'm gonna be hated, banned. People will condemn me. People will call me names, hate me. I don't want that. I'd rather be Dylan Mulvaney, right? And then conservatives will come out here condemn Andrew Tate, where I say, yo, look, on this masculinity point, Andrew Tate's untouchable. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't care what no one says. I don't care how you feel about his morality, whatever. I don't give a damn. When it comes to the masculinity point, Andrew Tate's untouchable. The only person that comes close to him, I think, is Jocko Walling. I forgot his name. Sorry, I forgot. I butchered his last name, right? The Navy SEAL guy. He's the only one that comes close to Andrew Tate's thing, and he's not as popular. Why? He doesn't inspire young men. Jordan Peterson comes across as our father, like the wise elder. while Andrew Tate comes across as the big bro, like, yo, get your butt in line. Because that's what I used to do when I was growing up with my younger brothers. I used to be like, yo, I was the rah, yo, let's go. Hey, I don't take excuses. Get up. Oh, you gonna cry? Like, that's how men inspire each other, right? And I'll end off the video with this. Men make insults they don't mean, and women make compliments they don't mean, right? That's the stereotypical stuff, but it's true. It's based on historical patterns. Women will give a nice compliment to another woman and not mean it. Men will insult each other and not mean it, right? There's just a difference of the sexes. But it seems like left-wing thought, left-wing media, left-wing people who believe in this progressive movement, they don't want to acknowledge human nature and human realities. And I think this is why they lose, or this is why they're starting to lose the narrative and stuff, because they went too far. They went off the deep end, right? Liberals, they haven't been touching grass long enough. They've been in their own echo chamber, and they went off to space where no other humans can relate to them. But hey, I digress. I know I kind of went on a little rant there, but let me know your thoughts with Riley Gaines. Do you agree with her synopsis in the beginning of the video? Do you agree with Bill Maher that it's a parenting issue? This is why we got the society we get today. Let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. I really do appreciate you guys. If you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.